You're watching coverage of the 30th Pan-Pacific Conference with me, Depree Strauss. This conference is hosted by the Faculty of Management at the University of Johannesburg. With me, I have Peta Thomas from the University of Johannesburg. Thank you very much for joining us.
Nice to be here. It's a lovely conference. It's lovely to have Asia coming to Africa.
Isn't it fantastic?
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about the paper that you wrote on the development of an organization's knowledge through business events. What kind of business events are we talking about here?
Business events is a theoretical definition, and it varies from country to country as to how it's applied. In South Africa, it is business travel associated with going to an exhibition, conference, incentive travel. In other countries, it's called the MICE industry, meetings, events, conferences, exhibitions. So it varies from country to country, but it's basically about businesses, a place where businesses network, show off their products, and hopefully improve their performance, the organizational future performance.
So in your research, you have not only concentrated on business events in South Africa, you've looked broader.
To compare us internationally, because we're very isolated down here, it's very good for South Africa to look outside and see how other countries are doing it, right or wrong, and decide where we want to go. So generally speaking, a lot of the research in Africa is benchmarked perhaps against other countries, best practice, worst practice.
And what are some of the findings that you've come across? What are some of the rights and wrongs in general that
There's a global problem. It's actually a global problem. I was very lucky in that I had access to 12 people across the world who did qualitative interviews with me, and they are powerful enough to lobby with their associations to change government laws and things. So each of the 12 has formidable power. Although 12 is quite a small sample size, they have formidable power, and they represent their organizations at government level and across countries. I mean, it is across continents. They actually have representation. So like European and North America, the one particular interviewee. There's a very strong lack of planning about how business events add to the intangible value of organizations. Asset balance sheets now of companies, sort of the profit and loss and things you see every year, they publish them in newspapers, almost has changed from 1975, where 75% of their assets were declared in fixed assets, tangible assets, buildings, cars, trucks, office equipment, to 75% intangible, intellectual property, human capital, patents, things, brand equity. So it's changed considerably, and it's not very easy to measure on balance sheets at all. When various big accounting firms are trying to do so. All of those things, our literature shows us very famous people like Drucker, created the knowledge worker, and then another very famous person in the 60s, a Harvard University person, Peta, he brought on the value chain of how the different functions within an organization add together, with the knowledge worker being the only variable that really changes. The tangible resources are available to everyone, so if you've got enough money, you can buy it. Intangible is the sought after thing now that makes you unique, competitive advantage against many thousands of similar products. So business events play a very important role in that, and yet the research findings show there's no strategy to integrate them into intangible knowledge creation. So there's a big gap there. HR is not happy about it. Human resources would like to be involved in developing that human capital, but they feel their job has almost been watered down to hiring and firing and maternity leave. So it's a very interesting paradigm, conundrum that is actually going on there.
Okay. So in looking at recommendations that you could make to HR practitioners or organizations in general when it comes to organizing business events, how do they make sure that they are more aligned with the people attending these events to know what the reasons are why they're attending and the outcomes that they would want from it?
There are two sides to this. There is the event organizer, who has to help you use their specialized knowledge to design an appropriate event. And then there are the needs of the organization who's attending, for their employees to gather certain information at that event or have the opportunity to gather it. The designing side of it has become very large in very big associations like Meeting Professionals International. It's a very, very worldwide global association for which you have to have a minimum number of 5,000 hours to accredit as a designer. It's sometimes called event architecture as well. And in the past, it's basically been get 6 rooms, have a number of people to speak who are quite interesting to the people that are coming, and everybody just get on with it, track sessions and so on. But these days, it's become a fine art. The actual design process will begin before they even then leave the organization, and a good event architect these days, i.e. what used to be an event organizer, will actually advise the organization from the moment they make contact about the pre-event activities or antecedents, on-site activities and post-event activities. Academics do it better than most people because we're always searching for knowledge, but even so, we miss a lot of opportunities, and when we carry it home, what do we do with it? We generally keep it to ourselves. Maybe if we're lucky, someone stimulates us in class and we share it in a class teaching environment, or it changes our thinking about the way we will write papers, but we don't actually put it into a knowledge repository in some sort of intellectual way that is kept for everybody to access. Perhaps an extension of this program that we've had here with Pan Pacific would actually to go back and have our own in-house meeting within my department, where we all present again to each other our papers, and then we also mention things that came out that we weren't, because of the number of tracks, perhaps we could then tell each other things we saw from our visiting Asian compatriots that we could share, that we thought they had brought an interesting factor to the conversation, but we hadn't been able to be in that track because we were in another track or we were presenting that day. So it's a very big design feature here, and HR has to work in organizations. That was the academic system, but in organizations, to make a change of performance in the future, they'll actually have to be working not only interfunctionally with their own marketing division to find out what they found and could share and leverage off each other, but also they've got to prep the people who go before they go, and that's not happening at all.
Right, okay. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
That was Peta Thomas from the University of Johannesburg speaking on business events. You are watching coverage of the 30th Pan-Pacific Conference from the Sandton Convention Centre in Johannesburg. This is co-hosted by the Faculty of Management at the University of Johannesburg, developing future-fit leadership.